Welcome to Tesseract Talks, the podcast where we explore technology shaping the modern enterprise. I'm your host, John Thompson. I'm an industry thought leader, a professor, and an author. I've written 5 books on the topic of AI, data, and analytics, including The Path to AGI, which is my current book. I spent nearly 4 decades in the enterprise space. I've worked at IBM, Dell, EY, Gartner, and a number of other companies. Today, we're going to talk about the challenges enterprises are facing around generative AI and agentic AI. And joining me are 2 gentlemen who know this space very well, Anuraag, who's a co-founder of TrueFoundry, and Raghu, who's a leader of technology at Automation Anywhere. You guys want to just give just a minute, a snippet of who you are, a little quick introduction from each of you, please?
My name is Raghuraman Sethuraman. I'm a Vice President of Engineering at Automation Anywhere.
Hi, I'm Anuraag Gutgutia. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at TrueFoundry, where we are building an agentic AI platform to help deploy agents as well as manage the governance through our AI gateway platform and enabling it within an enterprise's on-prem environment.
Great. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. So glad that you're here today. So when the enterprises talk about generative AI and agentic AI, there's a lot of conversation about models. Models have dominated the dialogue for nearly 3 years now, but we're starting to see more and more about agentic AI. I got an email this morning from McKinsey saying that agentic AI is all the rage in Davos. So what are the challenges from your perspective in actually moving from Gen AI to agentic AI? And Rag, let's start with you.
So when we think of the way AI has transitioned from traditional AI to now agentic AI, a lot has changed. Earlier systems that were being built, they were models wrapped as APIs, which were then being fed into applications. But in the world of agentic AI, it's quite different because now models are not everything. There are a lot of other components that go around along with the models. For example, we will have internal tools and MCP servers that people will need to bring that will interact with these agents to give them the right context. You need to care about the right prompts and how do you version them. You need to care about the agents, which how do you manage the memory of these agents and how do you serve them scalably and reliably. And then you need to also take care of all the guardrails because a lot of these models are huge and you are sending data to a lot of these commercial model providers. So managing all these 5 components becomes really challenging. And therefore, the infrastructure in itself to manage and scale this becomes more complicated than what the earlier infrastructure was. So that is something where, enterprises have to innovate a lot in terms of how do they kind of put the right governance layer for all of these 5 components within their stack to allow people to actually use it and scale it. So what is happening? It is transitioning from a model as an API to a system design challenge with a lot of different components, and you are actually solving for the right system design to be able to scale it.
That's a great point. Raghu, can you build on that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely, right? See, from Gen AI to agentic AI part of it, you also start dealing with identity-related challenges there. Identities become very important. Roles are extremely important. Role of agents and the agents talking to other agents over there. Users' identity becomes very critical. Their access control, access restrictions comes into play on that one. You have your traditional SDLC challenges of building governance operations there, but this gets amplified when you go into your agentic AI journey.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with both of you. And one thing I want to connect is the dialogue we're having with at least one word you hear a lot about in agentic AI is governance and governing agents and Gen AI. So Anurag, can you talk a little bit about, away from the technology conversation, but more about how business users can understand the idea of governance in an agentic AI?
Yeah, definitely. Let's take an example of, let's say, a travel that wants to agentify the way we search for travel, right? Like, earlier you would go and search for tickets to travel, let's say from New York to London, and accordingly go figure it out and then book the flights. Today, these travel companies would be releasing a chatbot where you can just go and type, hey, I want to travel from New York to London and between these dates, and go ahead and actually book the tickets for me at the right convenience and give me something that has sitting that is more comfortable and so on, right? Now, imagine if this system was going to be launched to the 100 million users that this travel company has, right? So let's kind of visualize it. There are so many challenges that a CEO who is going to launch this has to take care of. First, at the day of the launch, what if someone writes a query and there is a hate speech that comes out, suddenly the reputation of that company is at risk. Someone will go and post in social media. So the transformation that he or she was intending to bring through this agentic AI goes for a toss. So that is the first challenge. Secondly, imagine the cost of every query that a user is going to make is almost 100x rather than a normal API call, right? So there is, I can go ahead and I can write a script that can actually make this millions of queries on this travel company's website, and that could completely kill the entire cost. So there comes the problem of cost governance, right? Then the third that comes in is also about, imagine that a user goes, writes a query, and through some way is able to access data of someone else or use the credit card of someone else. There is a risk of managing that identity and access that Raghu alluded to earlier. Control that in the right way for models, the MCP servers, and the tools. So all these layers of governance become complicated, and you need to have like a single place to which you can ensure that when I'm releasing it for scale, I'm not getting screwed because my governance was not right. And that is where things start breaking.
Yeah. Raghu, you want to add on to that?
Absolutely. See, agentic AI applications are not just net new applications alone, right? They are all built on your existing applications in what you have today, which means they're all built on top of your existing data. So you need to have your data governance comes into play on that one, access restrictions for that. Our customers really, really genuinely care about how we protect their data. We need to make sure that data governance is in place. There's no data leakage. There's a proper data lineage that we can prove that data is how is being used, how is which data was trained, how you are securing their data. It becomes very, very critical at this point of time. So along with your data protection point of view, it's also about, which we should talk about, data governance in terms of how do you secure that data? How do you secure the transaction there? How do you make sure that there is no token overage? People can abuse the system, like how it was in the past about denial of service. There are threats coming in place of how can you exhaust the tokens that is available for any application there. So rate limiting becomes very key, right? So access restrictions becomes very, very important. Now, as I said earlier, identity is another critical factor. So which means when you have the agents, the role that they have to access other applications, other agents, users are applying using this agents right now. So the roles and permissions of users accessing these agents becomes very critical there. So governance happens in multiple layers, right from your data, which data you have used to source and secure, to train and to access and provide the data out to these agentic applications are very, very critical.
That's great. Great points, both of you. And I'm interested, in talking about governance, we hear about the typical access control, RBAC, and all those different kind of things that need to come into play. But I'm interested about implementing governance and ensuring compliance by using other textual based systems like, compliance systems, code of conduct systems, all these different kind of things that we can bring in now that we have Gen AI models. How do you see the synergy between the traditional privacy and security and access control and the new kinds of more textual compliance systems that are out there? Is there a way to bring those two together? And let's change it up. Let's start with Raghu on this one.
Yes, first and foremost, the agents are going to be layered. First and foremost, what you're going to have is internal set of agents. Imagine this, in a company, you are going to have departments, agents catering to very specific departmental needs. And then you're going to have agents that are going to be interdepartmental, right? And then you are going to have agents which are going to be across the company, which is going to be like agent of systems are going to be there. You'll have agents which are going to monitor and control these agents over here, right? There are going to be layer of systems which are going to operate, and you need to have a governance framework which is going to cater to each of these layers. So your departmental controls will be in place there. Your organizational controls has to be in place. Your government controls to be in place. And you've got other SEC like forums controls in place is going to be there in that one. So your policy engine becomes extremely critical as agents evolve. And the standard text-based agents won't work because they are also going to be relying on your internal set of data that is going to be used. Your roles, your internal data that was trained for this one, what data can be accessed and exposed to other agents, all of them will come into play. So what you're going to see is not just hierarchical exposure of agents, you're going to see hierarchical layer of governance coming into play, which will cater and stitch to different governance frameworks.
Anuraag, anything you want to extend on that?
Yeah, I think I'll just, double down on what Raghu is saying here. Like the policy engine becomes very, very critical. And today the policy engine, is written as code, is written as selections between certain things. Tomorrow, even this policy engine will start becoming agentic. So imagine within a company, the Kubernetes team can write pretty much by hand script. Please do not allow this to enter my environment. Ensure that users within this teams, this can be written by hand, and this will automatically convert into the right YAMLs that need to be applied. And that will then interface with the different policy layers that Raghu has talked about and will be used. And even the guardrails that we think of today as static, like PII reduction, etc., will start becoming dynamic. So imagine like there is a PII reduction guardrail. So what is PII today? Tomorrow there might be more things that will start being classified as PII within the context of that domain or those things. And there will be a dynamic system that will be able to update those from time to time. So I think that's what the governance will potentially go to. So it will be a governance that will be led by LLMs as well.
That's great. That's great. Okay, we've been talking about things in the abstract, governance, control, different things like that. Let's bring it into more of, more in empirical, realistic sense. Let's put a customer lens on this, where Automation Anywhere and TrueFoundry are working in practice. So let's start with Raghu. I'll pose the question to you, and then Anuraag, we want you to extend and clarify anything there. So Automation Anywhere has been scaling agentic, agentic automation in complex enterprise environments. Can you share specifically what has been improved with these two organizations working together?
Absolutely. Automation Anywhere is one of the leaders in the agentic process automation space, right? We are spearheading this journey with our customers there. Our customers trust us to deliver the agents that will integrate to their workflows, that will improve their productivity, that will simplify their operations, and it can scale. Which means when we are doing it, we have these agents which we build in-house, and then our services, which is going to deliver the agents to our customers, are built and it can scale. Today's generation is all about speed and agility. It's not just about building an agent. How quickly can you go and deliver the services there? How quickly can you go and add more new features, more capabilities to the customers? So at this point of time, we have been looking at systems that can scale with us, be flexible, right? Gives us a flexibility between delivering services across multiple cloud providers, ability to scale those content over there, gives you visibility and control and governance as these things scale. That is when we looked at multiple solutions over there. That's when we found TrueFoundry to be a natural fit for this use case, and we have deployed that. Now, hundreds of our internal services are deployed using TrueFoundry, which is deployed across multiple clouds, multiple cloud providers, multiple regions, which is used by all of our internal customers. Those services carry the features and capabilities that are trusted by thousands of our customers.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Raghu. Anuraag?
Raghu's probably has the best insight here in terms of the value we have been added. Just to kind of tie in the pieces you mentioned, John, we talked about models, we talked about MCP servers, we talked about guardrails, we talked about prompts, we talked about now multi-agent systems that Raghu alluded to. All of this require a single control plane through which you can manage them. And at TrueFoundry, we provide the AI gateway layer, as we call it. And that has been something that the team at Automation Anywhere has been using to ensure that all the traffic flows through it and there is the right governance and controls that we applied, right? And to that point, as you start building these agents, you have to scale them. And at the scale of Automation Anywhere, where customers across regions, across the globe, and so many across different clouds, you need something that can orchestrate that headache for you so that you don't have to worry about which cloud am I interacting with, which region am I deploying it. And still your cloud team can potentially enable a much self-sufficient platform for developers, to the point that Raghu mentioned around agility and speed, because that is what wins. So we have been fortunate to be working with the Automation Anywhere team. A lot of changes in the product that have come, a lot of things that have come because of ideas that have come from Raghu, Ramana, and others who have been involved. And we are just grateful to be a partner, and hopefully this can be something we can scale with them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've built many products, and when you find someone who can be a true partner, someone who is actually implementing your product and your code, and then can come back and help you refine and extend and explore new ideas. It's really a wonderful collaboration, and I can see that you two have that, and that's great. So we've been talking about technology and agentic enterprise and governance. We've covered a lot of space in the last 17 minutes. So let's bring it home. enterprise AI success depends on managing agents and their full life cycles, not just simple models. I think we've gone well beyond, pilots and proof of concepts, and we're really starting to see these things move into production. And as we said, building is one thing, but you have to manage and govern. It's a very, very important part of the production cycle. And then real life examples that we've heard about today are something that everybody should be looking for. It's no longer enough to say, hey, we've downloaded this technology, this open source code, we've played with it, we think there's something there. You need to be well beyond that. And these two gentlemen are illustrating that those kind of partnerships are out there, and agentic AI is moving into production today. So I want to say thank you to Anuraag and Raghu for sharing your strategic and practical realities of bringing agentic AI to the enterprise. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. The TrueFoundry team have a number of books, The Path to AGI, that I've signed. So reach out to Anuraag and the TrueFoundry team and pick up your signed copy of The Path to AGI. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks, Raghu, for being here. Thanks.